Hi, good morning. This is Dave Hershey. I'm the risk manager for Alexa International, and I'm attending the Philadelphia RIMS conference in 2017. The RIMS conference is a program that attracts all kinds of insurance-related people, actual insurance carriers, vendors providing different services, and of course risk managers who are the purveyors of those services. I've been asked, as being a proponent of continuing education and supporting that endeavor wherever and whenever I can, to interview some fellow risk managers, which I'm going to bring you to today. We'll start off by introducing Eric Machado. Okay, Eric, why don't you start when telling us, a little bit about your background and what brings you to RIMS in 2017.
Sure. Dave, thanks for having me on today. I'm currently the Safety and Risk Director at Mount Hood Community College in Gresham, Oregon. And I've been a part of RIMS now for, about 6 years. Very active in the local chapter. Been coming to RIMS national conferences.
What is your local chapter?
It's an Oregon chapter in Portland, Oregon. We're actually an award-winning chapter. We won the Chapter Achievement Award this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good for you.
Yeah, exciting times. We put a lot of energy into the organization, and we get a lot out of it. This conference is an unbelievable resource to be able to learn and meet folks. I met you through this conference several years ago, and here we are today.
Terrific, great. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your career and background.
Sure.
So, as an example, approximately when did you first, get into insurance?
Yeah.
And did you have any kind of, formalized training in school that helped you prepare for that?
Like many people I know, I kind of fell into insurance. Started in the claims side of things with nationwide insurance, auto claims. Did that for several years. Moved on to more advanced claims, so to speak, or higher risk claims. Worked for a TPA for many years.
Oh, I see. And what's the difference between a TPA
side
versus somebody like a Nationwide?
Sure. A TPA, you're working typically for more possibly self-insured companies, larger retention companies. You have a little more flexibility. You're not working so much on a policy, or at least on a potentially under an excess policy, but you have some more flexibility. You're working more with the risk manager in many cases. I work for Kroger Corp, which owns Fred Meyer out in the West. So I handled all the Fred Meyer litigated claims for many years.
Oh, interesting.
Sedgwick was the TPA at the time.
Now, what does TPA stand for?
Third Party Administrator.
Okay, so it's a subcontractor that you employed to handle your claims as opposed to the traditional route of using your insurance carrier
company
to handle their claims. Now, why would somebody go with a TPA as opposed to use the claim services that are typically bundled as part of their insurance premiums?
Most of it's about financial savings.
Really?
And financial savings and the ability to have a little more input, I think, into the outcome and the money spent. So instead of paying a premium directly to your carrier, a set premium, and then having them handle all the claims, you self-insure to a certain level. You have to be a large enough organization typically, and then you handle the claims. You choose who you want to handle the claims. They handle them for you. You have a lot of input with that. That's how I felt it worked best.
Terrific.
I worked closely, almost on a daily basis, with the risk manager of Kroger at the time, dealing with their claims and their high exposure claims. Whether it's prescription misfill, wrongful deaths, serious traumatic brain injuries, stuff like that.
Wow. So when as an example, might you encounter, I think Fred Meyer is like a department store?
It's a grocery department store. Yeah.
So in a situation like that, how would you end up with a brain injury?
Like I told people back when I was doing those claims, it's amazing what can happen at a grocery store. I mean, you think about a grocery store, everybody through all walks of life comes into the grocery store. So you don't have a specified segment of the population visiting your facility. You have everybody. So it's from the poorest folks to the richest folks and everybody in between. And things happen, unfortunately, whether it's driving accidents, prescription misfills, like I said, are very, very common. unfortunately, and those can be very serious claims. I had an eye out claim one time. Somebody lost their eye based on a product they purchased, and it wasn't so much a product defect claim, but it was a returned product to the store, and it didn't have the instructions. And so then it was resold as an open box item.
Interesting.
And they didn't have the instructions on how to put it together, and they put it together incorrectly. And in the process of putting it together, they fell into the product because of the weight they were putting on it, and punctured their eye and ultimately ended up losing their eye.
Who would have thought something like that from a department store?
Yeah, no,
That's wild.
It's
So now, as a claims adjuster for a TPA, really that whole investigatory process really kind of falls on your shoulders, right?
Correct. Yeah, you're responsible for the claims. You're talking with the store management about the incident, determining what occurred. Is there witnesses? Was there water on the floor that caused this? Things like that. So that was my really my background. My basis in risk management has all been around claims investigations, and claim settlements.
So based on what you just described, I could easily see where somebody that spends a fair amount of time digging into the root cause of a claim, might look like one thing on the surface when you see the paperwork.
Yes.
But then when you start to really peel back the skin of the onion, you find out, well, there's actually a lot of other components that affected that or
Correct.
caused that loss. Okay? So that would probably then kind of open up a door for people in the risk management community to also look and consider the impacts of a person that would specialize in safety.
Yes.
So now, did you interact with safety type people as well? And tell me a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, early on with the store safety folks, store safety management folks, we would identify trends that we would see on the claims side and pass those along to them. When I moved to the next organization I worked for, the Port of Portland, actually, the risk department included the safety department in it, and so I worked on a daily basis with the safety folks. We would see issues that arose at the airport or at the marine terminals, and try to hone in on those to determine if those are real true safety issues, what was going on, what kind of measures we could put into place to prevent things that might have been occurring, especially occurring on a regular basis.
Now, for those people that are maybe considering a career in insurance and probably don't have the type of experience a person such as yourself has, when they're looking at a potential career, right, they're probably most familiar with homeowners insurance, tenants insurance, automobile insurance.
Sure.
And when they pay their annual premium, they get their insurance coverage. They might get some loss control services if it's a new house or something like that. They'll come out and maybe take a look at it. What's your? Why would a company hire those people individually if they would just package that with their premium? Does that get into like specialization of the type of operation you are, or the feature or the things that you do as a company?
So you're asking why would a company have these extra folks basically from an insurance company wants to reduce the number of losses. So whether it's an underwriting process or loss control folks, FM Global is a great example. They have an entire engineering group that's just focused on property and reducing losses for that to increase their overall profitability, really, and to increase their policyholders' return.
Okay, interesting. So of course, policyholders or insureds really like that.
Yes,
I would imagine,
and ultimately to reduce the premium cost to the organization, to the individual. I don't want to pay any more money than I have to for auto insurance, so I try to drive safely, try to avoid accidents. And it's the same thing for an organization. If you have a poor loss history, you're going to pay more money for insurance. Where I'm at on the work comp side, there's a thing called experience mod rate, and the lower you reduce that, it's a straight multiplier off your premium amount. And so we focus on that to reduce the losses, the number of losses, and it saves my organization. We're about 25% lower than the industry average on that mod rate right now, and it saves us 25% off of our premium.
So now, without getting into particulars, because I wouldn't want you to disclose anything that might be considered proprietary or confidential in any way, When somebody makes a commitment to their risk management department and they hire professionals to work on their own staff, like a safety person, a claims person, or a risk manager, I mean, what are potentially some of the savings that some of these people see? I mean, are we talking, a few $100s, a few $1,000s? What?
It could be. It's potentially. I mean, it's anywhere from a couple $1,000s, but more likely, it's tens of thousands of dollars. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, one claim for any organization could potentially cost the organization hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, depending on the severity of the claim. Mm-hmm. And if you have an experienced risk professional assisting or being able to manage that claim, or manage the incident, or recognize things. You come to these conferences, we hear about emerging risks, so I can bring that information back to my organization and at least get it on the radar. Mm-hmm. If something happens, we're prepared at some level. Mm-hmm. Ideally, we're fully prepared to mitigate a loss or to even prevent the loss from happening in the first place.
So on a claim side, you would probably even talk about pre-loss and post-loss, things that you can do in advance.
Correct.
Okay? As an example, make sure that you're, being overly simplistic, the stairs are in good repair.
Correct.
Before the claim actually happens.
Yes.
And then in a situation that was unforeseen,
yes.
And we all know how crazy some of those claims can be, it actually does happen, then you would get involved to actually do what you can to best manage those expenses.
Exactly.
To keep the expense of the claim as low as possible, but still making sure that the proper services are rendered on behalf of the injured party.
Correct. And it depends whether you're talking workers' comp or a third-party liability claim. I'm personally a liability guy, and I like the investigation piece of the claims and trying to prevent my organization from paying more than they should. Mm-hmm. If there's liability, if there's partial liability, we can then negotiate with the claimant or the plaintiff or the plaintiff's attorney to ultimately come to the best resolution for my organization and all parties involved.
Interesting. In our conversation, I've noticed that you've kind of developed a little bit in your career.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now you've moved from a kind of a claims role into a more of a risk manager role.
Correct.
Okay. So what's generally speaking, what's the difference between like a claims person or a safety person as compared to a risk manager? What would be the responsibilities of a risk manager that you now assume?
Sure.
That's different than your old role?
Obviously, with being a claims only person, you're just mostly focused on the claims that come in on a day-to-day basis, and managing those individual claims as an individual contributor, so to speak. As a risk manager, it's a more holistic approach to, number one, managing the claims still. That's what I do. Procuring the insurance for the organization as a whole. I have safety management responsibilities and public safety management responsibilities. So I have public safety reporting to me. That's the unarmed law enforcement arm of the campus. And then I have environmental health and safety, which is the traditional safety function reporting to me. And all that is under one umbrella of safety and risk services, where I'm at. And then we're able to bring all that up to the highest levels of the organization, as I said, on the President's Council where I'm at, and we can then provide, number one, get the safety and risk issues to the top, have visibility for that, and then have input on other issues that affect the college.
Wow, that's terrific. Sounds like a pretty important role.
So, I think it is, but
how do you like this role?
Sure.
Okay, as compared to others? I mean, professionally speaking, you've made some changes. Picking up different aspects of the industry.
Yes.
I mean, what do you think of that responsibility now as compared to what you had in the past?
It's much more responsibility. Higher ed is a whole new field for me. I've been about 2 years where I'm at now. Higher ed has some risks, some unique risks, I should say. Things like Title IX, residence halls.
What is Title IX?
Title IX is an act, I think, from the U.S. that a law that basically, when I first started there, I thought it was only relevant to athletics and equality. But it's an equality act that covers, athletics. It covers sexual harassment. It covers a multitude of things in that space, and where it's really become resource intensive for higher education is along the sexual harassment, the sexual prevention in colleges, and then the necessity to investigate any kind of incidents that happen on your campus.
So that probably required you to do some additional education on your own to be brushed up with
Correct.
that, those statutes and the implications of them. So what are some of the other areas now? I've kind of interrupted you when you shifted to Title IX.
Yeah.
But what are some of the other things that you manage in your program?
Another big piece, safety concern, especially over the last couple of years, has been the active shooter. So we do a lot of training around active shooter preparation, evacuation. We train on a run, hide, fight model. Within that active shooter, there was an active shooter event that occurred at a community college in Oregon about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, that really impacted all of the rest of us in Oregon, and it hit home. It can happen anywhere. Unfortunately, it's become a more common occurrence, and we all have to be prepared for that.
And I'm sure going through those preparations, the families of the students that go there, although they may not see you, they might not know you, right? But they are extremely grateful for the services, the knowledge that you bring to the table to help protect their kids.
Correct. I mean, we have a responsibility as an institution to protect the students, the staff, and any visitors that come on campus, and to the best of our ability. That's truly any organization's responsibility from a risk standpoint, in my opinion. And as the world evolves, we just have to stay one step in front of these new issues, and the active shooter issue is more of a recent trend.
So, and looking at two things. One, your career. What do you see for the future for Eric? And then, is there anything in particular? We mentioned the active shooter, which, frankly, 15 years ago was not even on the radar screen. Is there anything else over and above, what you consider to be changes to your personal career in risk management, but issues that you foresee coming down the road that you'll end up having to address and basically roll into some sort of procedure or protocol into your program?
Sure. Like we've discussed, there's emerging threats that are continuous in the world. Coming to events like this, keeping on top of the newest issues is vital, I think, in this industry as a risk professional. That's why I'm such a proponent of continuing education and keeping abreast of what's going on. You have to, because things are changing at the speed of light in some situations. The cyber is a huge new emerging risk. I haven't even really delved into that at my campus, and it's a little concerning because of the number of records that we probably have, that I know we have, student records, PII information that we house, HIPAA information that we house. Some of that's in paper records because of the age of the institution. Some of that's online. How secure is it? You start talking about breaches, and we've seen it in the news. Targets and Yahoos and Home Depots have had thousands of people, thousands of names breached, and it costs millions of dollars to resolve these. That's for an organization that can be, that can put you out of business if you don't have the proper tools in place, whether it's insurance coverage or some way to mitigate those losses or to prevent those losses to begin with.
Interesting, because it sounds like you're hitting two separate and distinct pieces that at the end of the process actually become related. And that is, how am I going to handle my data?
Yes.
For insurance aside, you've got to have an effective, constructive, and a successful program to manage and retain the integrity of that information.
Yes.
And then separate from that, if something fails in that process, your fallback position is then to have insurance structured over and above that. So that's interesting. So your role is involved in two components. One, the procedures and policies of the organization, and then once you feel that you've got those sufficiently managed, you then take that package and insure it.
Yeah.
Okay. So interesting. Do you feel like you made the right decision in your life, your career?
Yeah, I really love what I do. Every day's different. It's not. I come to work and new things come at me every single day. There's no boredom. Some days you wish there was a little quieter. Friday afternoon would be nice if issues didn't pop up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But that's the nature of the beast. And in this day and age, I am on call, so to speak, at all hours. Even in the middle of the night, we have a property loss or something happens on campus. I'm going to know about it at 1, 2, 3 a.m. whenever it happens. So
and imagine all the parents of the students that go there, although may not say it, do appreciate that.
I think so. And I think there's reports out there, there's Cleary reports that are required reports now that show your crime rates, and that's going to have an impact on enrollment.
What would be your suggestion for anybody that is contemplating a career in insurance? And those are two types of people. Those are people that are currently in the insurance industry in a service role, such as a loss control or a claims professional, and they're looking to become a risk manager. So that would be one group. And then the other group would be kids that are, or young adults that are in college now or close to graduating and thinking that maybe what you've just described sounds pretty interesting and pretty appealing to them.
Sure.
What would be your suggestions?
Go for it. Dave, in our local RIMS chapter, we've done quite a bit of outreach with the local local colleges. Unfortunately, in Oregon and even in the West Coast in general, there's not a lot of risk management or insurance specific tracks you can take in higher education. Seems like most of the programs are back east, back this way. So, however, that doesn't mean you can't get into risk management. I mean, I just had a business degree myself, started in the claims side. We're telling these young adults what kind of opportunities there are in this field. I mean, I think CNN just ranked a risk manager as like the number 2 best job for the future. There's so much opportunity I see. It's just it's only a growing field.
What kind of a role do you see as continuing education in fulfilling or helping a person achieve that role? I mean, you go through 12 years of regular school, 4 years of college.
Sure. Maybe a graduate degree.
Isn't that enough?
It can be enough, for sure. But if you want to stay on top of your field, if you want to give yourself the best opportunity, keep educating yourself. Keep learning, because the world is changing, risks are changing continually. Like cyber, we hadn't heard of cyber 10 years ago. We hadn't heard of drones 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but those are all the buzzwords now because they're emerging risks. So without coming to conferences like this, without educating yourself on a regular basis, without learning more about the industry, you're going to fall behind. And I think that's the case in any industry, but it's especially important in risk management because of the ever-evolving nature of it.
Well, that's terrific. Eric, I can't thank you enough. I know it's been a busy conference and you've got a lot of things on your plate. So I greatly appreciate you taking the time to spend with us this morning and also being able to share some of your experiences and words of wisdom for those people that are looking to either alter their career, make a change within the insurance services industry, or even move into something along the lines of risk management as you did.
Yes.
So again, thanks so much for your time
for having me,
and your attention.
Okay.